From Hollywood, California, this is SMPTE 2016 Live, produced by Broadcast Beat.
Hello and welcome to SMPTE 2016 Live. I'm your host, Ryan Salazar, and today we have two guests. The first is Tom Burns, CTO for Media and Entertainment Division of Dell EMC, and Ryan Sayre, CTO at large of the EMA Division of Dell EMC. How are you guys?
Well, thanks.
Awesome. All right, as I'm sure SMPTE is treating you guys well?
It's fantastic.
Great. All right. What kind of impact is there to creative workflows as the industry transitions to all IP?
Well, from a creative side, it's been an amazing transition for basically empowerment of software. I mean, we live in a world where the consumerization of technology is happening at a real breakneck speed. And as we move away from these really rigid, forced designs that require very high-end hardware to very capable software architectures that work on commodity architectures, people are able to say, this is the empowerment and the citizen realization of, now I can have tools that were completely unavailable to me even 5 years ago. So it's a huge step in actually giving tools to startup organizations, as well as making the tools even better for existing and established organizations on the creative side.
Great. And Tom, on the infrastructure side, what are your thoughts?
You know, it's funny, the same migration that Ryan just discussed from hardware black boxes to pure software tools is a trend that's already happened in enterprise IT. And so the media and entertainment industry is adopting the tools and workflows of enterprise IT. But that same agility and speed that you're talking about, that makes it really hard for the facility provider because of these things called CBBs, could be betters. And you know, that means that you're basically working on the shot until the last possible second when it has to be delivered for distribution. And that's the bane of every facility owner. This new agility allows more creativity.
All right, so who will benefit in the ever-quickening transition from linear creation and consumption to a more tighter production consumption model?
You know, from my standpoint, I think that it's the consumers. You look at viewing patterns for media, and you look at that, and people are watching many more hours of this content, but the patterns of how they're consuming it is changing. You're going from a hybrid model where people would only go to the movies and only to television to going to the cinema, watching some television shows that are live action emphasized, to, hey, you know what, if I'm stuck in traffic, obviously in the backseat of an Uber, I'm going to pop up my mobile phone and I'm going to watch the episode that I want to watch over my 4G or 5G network. So I think that this globalization, this connectivity that exists with the internet basically empowers people to say, I want it now, and if it comes to me quicker, I'll consume it as soon as it's out. It's an amazing transition trend where a lot of people in the rest of the world used to say, well, we'll wait the 6 months or the 9 months for our translation to arrive. People aren't waiting for that, especially as a lot of the productions that are here in the United States are exported. People go, I don't care about translation. It's a nice to have, but I'll pirate it if I get the chance to do that. And in the industry, we don't necessarily want that. So having an all-digital workflow enables us to be able to say, okay, we'll give it to you in a legal, legitimate way, and we'll give it to you in the means and the methods that you want.
Great, Tom.
And on the infrastructure side,
something that you said about globalization strikes a chord in me, because we've seen that the visual effects and post-production communities, first of all, they're merging together into practically the same entity, but they're going into a fully global, fully distributed, collaborative production workflow. And so again, trends from enterprise IT like, well, virtualization for sure, but it's more than just the compute and storage and network virtualization. We're now into containerization, which is kind of like virtualization of workflows. So really to enable that true globalization, that parallel workflow where many creatives can work on the same project in a follow-the-sun model, workflow virtualization such as containerization, that's the enabling technology that I'm seeing.
All right, so what kinds of digital artistry will leverage the innovations that are here today and in the near future?
I think that on the creative side, you're seeing the costs go down quite significantly in terms of productions. I mean, people can go to if they have a MacBook, they can go to the Apple Store and just download DaVinci Resolve, and then they're already doing some high-end compositing and editorial just by downloading the application. Open source is huge, but also, if you went 10 years ago and you needed a special effect, you would have to go and buy a plugin that was very focused on creating particle effects and other kind of environmental effects to create a sense of a visual stimulus that really makes sense in a creative workflow. Now people can go to an algorithm marketplace such as Algorithmia, download a smoke simulator, plug that into their Blender toolkit, and have really beautiful stuff where they wouldn't have had this. So we're actually seeing a diversification of the market in terms of what people can pick and add into the creative workflow. Really, really cool stuff. And I think that didn't happen before when we were doing very specific, very linear production models, as well as, it was just a few players in the market. Now anybody could be a fantastic, rich movie producer.
Again, certainly on the infrastructure side, the adoption of what we'd call an enterprise hybrid cloud, or people just call it a hybrid cloud. We know that you can make movies purely in the cloud. The ETC suitcase project has proved that. But I think a lot of people need a certain amount of on-prem for their low latency, high throughput workloads. You want to have that on-prem, but you always want to have the cloud out there to enable global collaboration, disaster recovery, and just something I thought you were going to say is virtual reality.
Oh, yeah,
the
right.
ability to upload directly into the cloud from a VR and stream from the cloud directly. That's both a business model and a creative tool that we've never seen before.
It's interesting, and we're going to get a little bit off piece, but I hope you don't mind. But VR is becoming built into a lot of these toolkits, so that maybe not today's storytellers because they're used to a linear model of telling the story, but tomorrow's storytellers, when they see these tools available to them and it becomes available and accessible, they go, you know what? I'm going to start doing your choose your own adventure type of thing, and I'm going to use VR as the storytelling model. So things like Pixar RenderMan, which we love Pixar films, we love it very much, but if someone says, I'm going to download RenderMan, which is free for personal use, and I'm going to create a wonderful choose your own adventure where I have my friends put on their HTC Vive or Oculus Rift and be able to create that world, that's something that is just amazing. So VR is something that we're already talking about a little bit, but man, the tools are getting there faster and faster, and that citizen enablement and that enablement for all of the existing storytellers to augment and create new realities, it's huge, absolutely huge.
So is there a downside to all this purported progression or progress?
It's a great question because if you looked at the most recent Star Wars production, they moved back to shooting their scenes on film. And the reason why they transitioned back to film was a sense of mindfulness in setting up the shots and really getting the artistry right the first time. And that was a significant impact because for leading up to that, everyone was saying, go digital, we'll have our dailies, we can take the same shot 10 times and we can just blast through that. And I think that mindfulness, now of course they're kind of pulling back and using an analog technology to enforce that mindfulness. But you know what, once we realize, hey, it's okay to take a break and it's okay to care about the craft, I think that even though maybe in the short term it's a downside, in the long term people will go, okay, well we really do need to think about our creative craft, and we can continue to leverage the technology, but add a little mindfulness and add a little caring into that. It's going to be all better all around the whole production from the creative side.
I hear where you're going, but I would focus on a more specific point around VR. Remember when you said Pixar, right? Pixar's never been about the infrastructure. They're about story first and foremost, and they do that storytelling better than anybody in the world, whatever. And so things like VR, I wonder if the downside of that isn't the death of 2,000 years of Western narrative culture, where a director and a writer skillfully direct your attention, and now we don't know yet. We don't know how to tell stories in a fully telepresent, fully VR, or even 360 video kind of world. I'm not saying that's a downside, but I'm saying 2,000 years of narrative culture is going to be an interesting battle to see whether it can be upended or not.
All right, well, certainly an interesting discussion. Thank you so much for spending some time with us. Again, Tom Burns, CTO for the Media and Entertainment Division of Dell EMC, and Ryan Sayre, CTO at large of the EMEA, all the way from Africa, right?
All the way from Africa, absolutely.
Amazing.
It's a long flight.
All right, well, it was certainly a pleasure chatting with you guys from Dell EMC. Have a great rest of your SMPTE show.